Hello and welcome. Let's talk further upon the 6-step cycle. I did a 2-part video on this a couple days ago, which is a mathematical simple strategy in buying low, selling high, protecting yourself when markets get out of hand to the upside. It's designed so that you start at step 1, and every sell order in order you get thereafter, you increase the amount that you sell to your portfolio and the percentage gains you require. So if you are looking at the first one where it sells 20%, it says 20% at 30%. That means on a 30% gain, you would sell 20% of your altcoin holdings. Then after that, from whatever the price is at the sell point, you calculate what a 50% price increase would be, and you would sell 30% of your remaining and keep that forward. If it keeps getting out of hand, 80% sell order, or 80% increase rather, you sell 4/10, 40%. Then if the market does a bit better than double, a 2.25x or 125%, you would sell half. 60% of what you own at 200%, and if it really gets out of order, a 5x gain from there, you'd sell everything. The buyback represents that after the sale, on a 20% decline from where you sold at, you're going to buy 1.2 times the amount you sold, and so on and so forth, with buying 2.5 times your amount with a loss of 75%, or 4x on the number that way. And I did a simulation on PivX, and it was as wild as I thought it would be. The line at 27,044 would represent where the next buy order would come into place. It just hasn't reached yet. Technically speaking, as a trader, I would say, you know what, I'm going to delete the order. I'm just going to buy it now. Close enough. But if in this one, it was always the exact order, and there was one really bad case of a missed sell. But other than that, there wasn't too much unluckiness. For this on the weekly chart, and these were the lines that I were using. These were the old buy orders that just got vanished out of thin air. So therefore, it had this type of gain where it went from like 1,200 Satoshi up to 160,000 Satoshi. Yeah, severe gain. I was kind of wondering how far up would it get when it sold out? Would it finish level 6? And sure enough, it did. But what I did was I started back and I used the 3-hour time frame. And to scroll back, what I do is I merely highlight as many periods as I can and then just move the mouse over to get all of the periods to back in the day. And with all this choppy action, it worked out to be such a profitable situation. I started this game at a price point of 417. And when you look at these moves, it's just so obvious that it's profitable to sell, buy back, sell in here, buy in here. And then keep on doing the following. For if you bought in here, well, then there was selling in here, the buying back here. A lot of buybacks came into place. In fact, using this 6-step cycle, there were dozens of trades, a handful. It took a couple hours for me to do it. It probably would have taken about 3 hours had I recorded it at the same time, because it takes a little longer to do such. So there were lots of big moves. I'm not going to draw anymore but you can see here, like the up move, down move, up move, down move, the choppy action here. And when you look at the volatility, 791 falling back to 625, there's a lot of great volatility. Here's a move of it going to 2300, falling back to 600. I'll just show you a situation in here that got very, very interesting. And then, of course, this thing would just be ready to take off in the spring of 2017. So then, let's now take a look at the spreadsheet, and I'm just going to reset the scale here to current time frame and bring up the spreadsheet. But before we do, 100x on 411 would be 41,000. And playing the game of just buying and holding from there, that's a tremendous gain. And doing the buy and sell strategies that I talk about, it just you're just going to always, it seems, underperform markets that have extreme measures up in this level, because you're buying a whole bunch of those coins at the cheap price and they become, well, about 100 times worth more. And in this situation, long story short, buying and selling, trading, the gains are about 100 times. They are essentially much, much larger. And days like this is just beautiful, because in the simulation I did get a sale here, I think, anyway. But let's now go to the spreadsheet and start it off with the first buy. And it was done so at 417. What this means is coins coming in and out, which is just taking this number and then the sum is here. This is how many Bitcoins come in on a sale and how many come out. The sum, and we're starting with 0.05. What the portfolio is worth and what the hodling is. We'll go over these stats on the right hand side later on. But for now, I want to focus on the trade prices and amounts. Again, we're using the numbers as stated. So when you get to higher levels, it does fantastic. But we can see here, all the ones and twos, you go from, you buy 417, sell 542. And then 433, buy, two's a sell, one's a buy. Two in a row, sell, 563, then 845. So you got to stage 3, but then it pulled back where there were 2 buys in a row. So both of these orders got replenished. And what we're going to see from this point on for quite some time is the failure to get to level 3. Every single time it bought back, it never went low enough where it was required to buy more. It was a consistent placing of selling at 30% up and 20% down, consistently over and over. Now, the strategy is designed, again, not only to protect yourself from the big moves to make sure you profit take, but also to acquire more tokens as well. Again, when you're buying 11,000 at something worth 400 Satoshi, 11,000 is worth a lot more now, of course. But so anyway, so we look at the price. 585 sell, 468 buy. 608 sell, 486 buy. And also that the starting transaction was buy 27, sell 25. These numbers are going to gradually go up, and these are going to continuously have higher highs and higher lows. I'm going to show a chart at the end of this, but we can see in here how it's 1 2 1 2. In fact, there is not 2 orders in a row until even below this. So at the start here, it was buying 450, selling 585 for 27.45. Now we're working on the way of buying almost 4,000 of them. And the price point is selling 764 and buying 611. So we're actually buying at a level where we secondly started selling right in here. And it keeps on going until finally it gets to level 3 in here. And this is why there's so many trades, because of all of this action that was going on, and it's choppy sideways back and forth action. It's ideal for trading within this mechanism. And all the ones and twos never getting too high as the price is staying at 1,000 Satoshi now. And there's a star right here. Now, as this kept on going, what happened was it finally had two buys in a row. It had bought 69.85, but this buyback from many turns ago states that I can only buy back 4,500. Wait a second. Okay, no. This is a situation. Never mind. This was a situation in which I basically ran out of specific spots to buy, and I think this was actually where the order was in place. Yeah, it was. This is where the buy order was because of all the gains. It meant that you had to have a huge fall from the 1372 to get there, and I could only buy 4,500. So mathematically, this buy was actually by the book, and it went down significantly because of all the small higher highs and higher lows. And this is a sell order from $37.50 at $8.58. So you can see here you're buying back 4,500 at 686. Now this one here has got a sell with a star on it too. Now this is a spot where if you were to sell 20%, well, now you're starting to sell like 4,800, 4,900. And technically, I would rather not do so after I just bought 4,500. So this is a spot because of in here where I just manually reduced it to 4,500. And as it goes on, this is where the markets get out of control now, where I get two sell orders in a row and a buyback. And then starting at the price point of 19.23, I sell, moving to level 3. Then I moved to 34.61 and I sell. So I was at 21,000 tokens, even 25 before, and it got to 0 here. Selling at 19.23, then 34.61. 77.87, then 23,000, then 116,000, missing the top by 70,000 basis points as it got up to about 180. So most of the time, if you miss the top by a decent amount with insane gains of this nature, it's usually never going to matter, because if something goes from 1 unit to say 700 and you get out at say 450, there's a good chance it's going to go well down, which is exactly why I designed this on level 6 to buy back next 2.5 times what you sold, losing 4 times its value. This was a long wait. This was a very, very long wait to do such. It happened. It came back. It meant buying at the price point of 29,291, and 2.5 times works out to 4,600, which ironically is how much this was before here. And now at this stage, it's back in the game. Now, they're probably using different ways of entering back in. Might be better. This one worked out. You went through the entire loss, and in the spot in this here, you sold 2.14 Bitcoin. You were worth on the bank 3.5. Or your overall portfolio was worth 3.5, really, because you had no altcoin. And hodling was worth 12 at that point. Of course, because you sold everything at the high and didn't buy back to 29, that worked out to be profitable. But you can ways of just playing around this is you sold 2.14, you're buying back 135. So the purpose here, right off the bat, is a profit take of 0.08. But you can allocate, say, I mean, this is an extremely large buy to buy 1.3 Bitcoin worth in one shot. That's something you just haven't been doing. So other alternate ways is, instead of buying it all back at 29, maybe you wait and portion this up into 3 or 4 different buys. So you're going to use about 1/3 Bitcoin to maybe buy at, say, 60,000, maybe close to a 50, even 55,000, go for a 50% decline. And then maybe some more at, well, say 60,000, then down again at 40, 29, and so on and so forth, in different partitions lower. Okay, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back to the spreadsheet. So therefore, from that point on, there were 2 sell orders in a row, selling at 37 and 56, buying back at 42, selling at 64, buying back at 48, selling at 73, buying at 54, selling at 82. So here we go, buy back and forth, and the numbers on the buys and the sells marginally increase each time, but noticeably, buy back at 61 and buy back at 40 with a star. Because at this stage, my next buyback is from this 23,000 sell. Because I've already got this buyback done. So I don't really have any buy orders in here. So this is where you've done so well trading the game. You just have to pick a number. So when I was playing the game, I just did a hair above 40 thinking, you know what? That's a one-third off price. That's just the number that I took. And of course, that got me back to level 1. So I was doing all the back and forth tradings from level 2 to level 3. So before, it was selling in the early stages, it was selling at 30% of a gain, and then buying back at 20% reduction. Now it was selling at 50% gains and buying back at 25% reductions. And then we continue to sell 52, 78, buy back at 58,000. And then continuing lower, we have a sell at 87. And there was 2 sells in a row here, so we got both of the buybacks here down to 41,000. A sell, 54, buy 43, sell 58, buy 45, and it keeps on going. Buy now again at 25,000, sell at 32, buy at 26, sell at 33, sell at 50, sell at 91. And the amount that we're selling for in here, first we sold for 2/3 of a Bitcoin, and then 1.2, and then a little over 2. And when you're selling at after level 1, for 2/3 of a Bitcoin, and before here, these were fractional numbers like 0.016, 0.017. So the whole point of this is to help you become a bigger game player as time moves on, and we can see here that it's doing such a thing within this pullback that it has had. So then we now buy at 3,000. Sell at 25, and then 2 buys at 34, and again, we sell at, goes up to 100,000, buy back at 69 and 38, and the buyback next would be at 27,044. So statistically, starting with 0.05 and a portfolio value of 5.5 means that it has went up 110 times your starting stack against Bitcoin. Bitcoin's up about 10 times or so, maybe 600 back then. So that's another 1,000 times. For 5.5 Bitcoin today is obviously worth like $4,000 or 40 grand rather. And if you're starting with 0.05 back in a day when it was like 600, well, that would be about $30. So the amount of life-changing income that is available within such is mind-boggling. Statistically speaking, when this was at the point, we can see we're hodling. Look at the volatility of just buying and selling. This is when you can go from nothing to 12 and then back down to like 2. That's a poor job in protecting profits if you don't sell. But this is a strategy that I like to, if you're playing coins that you think can have major gains, to just do such. Let's take a look at a chart now. And we'll do so by, I got it scrolled. I might have to change the size of it or not. Yeah, let's just make it as full screen as I can. Okay, what this is the blue line represents how well you are via trading the market, and the orange line represents just hodling, which is how the market in itself is doing. And we can see that on the original sets of the higher highs and higher lows, a couple things in notice. One, the barely selling higher and barely buying back higher prices is the reason for the lows and highs. And how the upper line, the blue line, is rising at a greater rate of ascent than this one in forms of just selling portions of your positions higher and buying that same portion back lower. And within such, when this thing took off, this gain went from point here, which was like 25, and this was at like 0.10. This went from 10 to like 15, and this went from, well, basically 25 to like, well, much lower. So it went from a much higher starting point because of all the times it had to sell at levels 2, 3, 4, 5 at all those points, where this did no selling or buying along the way. But when this had a big downfall, that was the fall to go to 26. This thing was on the sidelines as this thing was falling lower. And amongst here, it may look like the orange line is overperforming the blue. That's just a case of having significantly less amount of coins, thus playing higher volatility, because during this situation here, you're in Bitcoin. But during this fall here, we can see that how much the portfolio playing on the blue line has been getting you saved. For price action here, or another way of putting it is, when this thing got to the point where this player got back in, well, the blue line is much higher and the orange line is lower. So we look at this again on a statistical basis. When it got to the point of selling everything, worth 12 and worth 3. Then they comes back, it's worth 3.2. So portfolio worth 3.2 versus 358. This one's down. So when the market has fallen from 3.2 to 297, that's a differential of almost 10%. Yet this has went to 5.5, and going from to 5.5 from, well, 3.5 or so. That's about 60% gain. So within this within the strategy of just a basic one like this, which of course having just smart modifications and even playing around with numbers here and there to adjust purposes. Maybe instead of selling at a 30% gain, you start at a 40 or a 20 or 25. You can play around with it. But when I made these numbers, I wanted to make sure that when you sold in percentage, the amount, it was as high as it could be, with making sure that the value of your altcoins is still worth what it was before the situation. So if you had, say, 1 unit worth before on the buy, and then when you sell, you want to make sure after your sale, well, that portfolio is worth at least and greater than that one number, even if it's just 1.02 or something. So that was the key on that. And then the buyback is to ensure that it buys back at a higher low and that it does so getting more tokens back for less than the price that you paid for them. Because when we look at styles of markets, if the market's going to be just a choppy action like this, how can you not be having superb profits at this stage? If the market is, say, in a, well, just any type of sideways range, which this is what this is. But if it goes in an okay uptrend, you have moves like this and then stuff like that, and then you do this, and all the normal bull markets that you have of decent gains, then you should still overperform your base currency. So therefore, if the market goes up, you're going to win. If it goes big time up, you may underperform. Even though this example has ended up being ahead, there of course has been times it wasn't. And if you're having major profits, knowing that this type of betting system or trading system ensures profits in down and sideways markets, to me it's just great to get profits, especially of magnificent proportions. So that to me, even though it's underperforming, is a great thing. Then when the markets go sideways, well, you're going to profit on it. Because if you start off at 100 units and it goes up to 130, down to 70, just goes back and forth, and then later it's at 100, well, you're going to be in a profit. And then later when it's back to 70, well, you're still going to be in a profit. Definitely not as much as you were when it was at 100 back here. But obviously, winning in a downtrend is a positive thing, which thus, of course, in some downtrends, based on the fact if it only goes down a little bit, but overall has choppy action within it. If you have downtrends like this, well, now you can talk about even profiting in such a venture. But when the markets, of course, just keep on doing this, and you might get a little bit of a rally, but this is usually the best you're going to get, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose a lot worse in this spot. So this is the real big risk, is finding coins that avoid being in this situation. Now, if it goes like this for a period of time, it's got to do this pretty much throughout its entire history. Because you can see this go down continuously, and a lot of codes have done such for like months and months and months. And when you're trading, you're looking at your past results, your past 13 trades. Oh, I got 11 buy orders and 2 sell orders. 8 consecutive buy orders in a row, of course, depending on your volatility. And the whole purpose of keeping on buying is so that after a buy is completed, then you're obviously now only 30% away from having a sell opportunity. And then that's, of course, where you get your profit, is when you sell. Thank you for tuning in, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.